Good morning. Hey, I like the energy. That's great. How are you, Sundar?
I'm very, very good.
Aren't you excited to be here?
Very much so. It's good to be out, see people, do things in the real world again.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And talking about technology, which is even more exciting, and for a region that really needs to take that dump so that we can fix what was broken during the pandemic and progress. And today, we have to start our conversation with a very important commitment that was just announced hours ago. Why don't you talk to us about it?
Well, yeah, real pleasure to be here for such an important occasion. You know, as Google, we've had a presence in Latin America for a long time, since 2005. It's a place where a lot of our products are heavily used, and we feel a deep commitment. And as part of that, the summit, we are incredibly excited to announce a commitment of $1.2 billion to the region across 4 main areas: digital infrastructure, helping people grow their digital skills, supporting entrepreneurs, and through our philanthropic arm, making sure the growth is inclusive and sustainable. So those are the 4 main areas, but happy to get into more details.
Exactly. I think that one of the key areas that we have talked about in the past hours with really very strong focus is skilling, training, and that's one concern that you've always had.
It's getting access to technology, makes an incredible difference. Growing up for me, everything, I vividly remember we had to wait 5 years to get a rotary telephone, and when we got access to a telephone, it changed. People would come to our home to make calls, and it brought people together. So always struck me how much technology can make a difference. I waited for a long time before I had access to computers too. So I think giving people that access to technology and creating that opportunity is something which has always motivated me. Through the pandemic, we have seen almost everyone, particularly small businesses, which are the backbone of our economy, they're all trying to grow digital. So we've been really focused on digitally skilling people. In Latin America, since 2017, we have trained around 7.5 million people. But we are committing an additional 1 million scholarships for Google Career Certificate program. We have done this program in the U.S. It's a 9-month course. And what's been exciting for us is well over 50% of the people who go through these programs are from underrepresented communities, minority groups, women, and to see the opportunity they get on the other side. And we partnered with other companies, community organizations. So we're bringing all that learning and bringing it here. And we hope through the 1 million scholarships, we can touch many more people.
Absolutely. And I think during the pandemic, there was a very loud message for small and medium-sized companies that did not use technology yet as a way to just become more resilient. And I think that that's another key important part of the announcement this morning, just supporting entrepreneurs and that ecosystem.
No, it's a big part. Many years ago, we announced Google for Startups in the region. Yes. And at that time, there were literally no unicorns to go with. We've supported 450 startups now, and there have been unicorns which have come out of our Google for Startups program. And in fact, what's been exciting to me is the rate of growth of unicorns. You see, there are world-class entrepreneurs everywhere. They just need access to capital, to resources, to mentorship, and the supporting infrastructure. And so we couldn't be more excited. We are continuing to do that and scale that up. And I think the opportunity in the region is huge.
And that specific data is impressive. 13 of the 35 unicorns in Latin America have been part of those programs that Google has supported. It's incredible.
Yeah, and overall, many of they've gone on to create over 25,000 jobs. And so, this is the engine of an economy, and
Exactly.
You're planting trees for the future.
Exactly. I don't think there's a better time to highlight the importance of the private sector, of the entrepreneurs right now, to just create value, create jobs, and help progress in the nation. In this complex context, what are your thoughts around that?
Such an important question. And if you look at successful economies, they have a robust private sector, right? And underlying that is a strength in small and medium businesses. So these two go hand in hand. And so having the right pro-innovation, pro-regulatory environment which supports entrepreneurship, I think is incredibly important. A good, certain regulatory environment to support the private sector is equally important. What's exciting is we see many countries in Latin America, are what we think of as digital sprinters. If you can drive digital transformation, the 6 of the largest economies here by 2030 can grow their GDP by $1.37 trillion. That's a 23% incremental growth. And so that's what it's at stake here by getting it right.
That's, I think, a data that we should never forget. I mean, that's exactly the meaning of possibility is what you just said. In numbers, I mean, that gives us a huge perspective, and it's a loud message. Now, of course, we're talking about companies, private sector, but we need to talk about infrastructure and connectivity. And the announcement this morning also includes that part, an effort in infrastructure.
It's the foundation of everything we do. We've done a lot of work in infrastructure in the region. We have 2 cloud regions in Santiago, Chile, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. We are in the process of completing Fermina, a massive subsea cable from the U.S. to the region. And what we find is when you lay down the infrastructure, you support it with connectivity by partnering with telcos, affordable mobile phones. We work really hard to make Android phones more affordable and accessible. And you create that virtuous cycle, which means more people have access, which means businesses also are digital, and you can create that virtuous cycle. And that's really part of what you do to drive digital transformation. So the infrastructure part is very important. We are going to continue growing that, and we are very, very committed to expanding that as part of this announcement.
In a way, the pandemic helped us understand louder the message of the importance of technology. And we're going to see some examples in a couple of minutes, men and women who are doing exactly that. But since that is a loud message and we haven't moved faster, what would you say are the opportunities that we should be focusing on to help technology do its work and us leveraging technology for our own progress as a region, as countries, communities?
We've touched upon both infrastructure, skilling, supporting entrepreneurs. I think the part I would add is, it's important to make sure, technology drives growth, but you have to work hard to make sure the growth is inclusive and it's sustainable. And that part needs, a lot of extra work. I think it needs, particular focus from both the private sector and from the government. A big part of our announcement, $300 million, both $50 million in cash grants and $250 million in-kind, particularly supporting small businesses to grow through advertising, is to drive inclusive growth. It's going to be focused on supporting indigenous communities, women-owned businesses, and so on. For example, we are supporting an organization called Promo Hair, with a $2 million grant. They work in Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, supporting indigenous groups to give them access to digital skills and help them grow their businesses. So doing things like that, and the government playing a strong role supporting it is going to be equally important, I think.
This is a very complex scenario that we're living right now. There's war, inflation. What keeps you up at night when you talk about technology and how we are using it or not using it?
Look, I've always been, we've spoken about the power of technology and, almost traveling around the world. And we've been doing this work and seeing countries go through this digital transformation. We see the power of it. But technology always has a duality to it. The essence of humanity is harnessing technology to benefit society. And we have to continue to be vigilant. We are working on newer important technologies like AI. They are some of the most profound and powerful technologies. We see already benefits, be it in healthcare, be it in education.
Yes.
but we have to be responsible in how we develop it. And so, for example, as Google, we have articulated publicly AI principles. But this is something not just Google, but nonprofits, academic institutions, governments with the right regulatory approach. We need to make sure we steward AI and other important technologies to make sure they work well for the world.
As an immigrant, I'm sure everybody's asking you this, but this CEO summit and this summit is very focused also on immigration. And as an immigrant, Google has always taken a position in regards of immigration. What's your biggest concern as an immigrant of what you're looking at right now, since you were seeing people from many countries in Central America, Haiti, Venezuela, leaving their countries looking just for a better future or to start again?
You know, I mean, we are a company, you know, one of our founders was a refugee and an immigrant, and
Yes.
Google wouldn't be what it is today without people, you know, talented people coming from around the world. And so we've always, you know, it's one of the best resources a country can get. And, you know, in the U.S., we've advocated, you know, support for dreamers and help them, you know, transition to citizenship. And I think, you know, you will find, you know, over time, it's one of the best investment a country can make. And, you know, and people through all the examples you're talking about are searching for better opportunities, which is why it's equally important for all countries to grow their economies, you know, and make sure they're making the transition, particularly digitally, so that they can prepare themselves for the future. It's important to skill and invest in people. And for other countries, you know, being welcoming for people everywhere is one of the best long-term decisions they can do.
Absolutely. And the value of the private sector in polarized countries is also being questioned. What would you say? And it's not only Latin America, it's in general. We're seeing a tide of messages that convey that. What do you say about that value creation? We've talked about it with small and medium-sized companies and how they represent the core, the muscle of a nation, of an economy. What would you add to that?
You know, governments can't drive growth alone, right? Private sectors account for the vast majority of growth in an economy. And, you know, so unless, you know, you internalize that, really invest in that, view them as partners in this journey, I think, you know, that is the real key to unlocking economic growth, which really helps your citizens. And so, you know, I think it's important for governments to internalize this. I think it's particularly important in this region. And so, which is why I'm glad there is a summit and with both people from the public and the private sector, which gives us a chance to have these conversations.
Last but not least, I asked you a little bit about small and medium-sized companies, but we're going to be showcasing an example of two women. And I would like to get your thoughts about women empowerment through technology. And what you're doing with ProMujer is really incredible, an important microfinance institution, educational institution, but there are tons of them and are in need. But what about women empowerment, recovering what has been lost for women through the pandemic?
I mean, this is one of our biggest concerns. Maybe I'll answer it in the context of a company. We've been very concerned about, you know, losing women in the workforce through transition like that. But one of the opportunities through the pandemic is we've all learned how to tackle remote work and create more flexible workplaces. So I think it's an opportunity to help, you know, attract more women to the workplace. Just last week, Google announced a policy, you know, after maternity leave, you know, women can have an additional 3 months where they can work from home and make the transition in a flexible way, which gives almost 9 months for them to actually be back in the office. But the reason we are doing that is because we fundamentally understand, you know, how important it is for us to have a diverse workforce, the perspectives women bring, and make the company a better place. And so I think we all need to think about it deeply and do more.